Welcome everyone to this AI SIG webinar. Thanks for coming along. Just wait a little longer to let people join properly, and then we'll get going. The session is being recorded, so we'll all have access to that recording after the session. So we've got quite a lot of people have already joined. Maybe others will join, but we might as well start slowly. And really warm welcome to this AI SIG webinar. It's the second in the series. It's a really important topic that I know everyone cares about. It's about cataloging, creating metadata using AI. Everybody's like talking about how we can do that. And we've got two speakers, maybe taking slightly different approaches. Ling is the Deputy Director of the Metadata Service team at the National Library Board in Singapore. She's been in the team for 10 years, and she now oversees cataloging operations and leads on various initiatives to enhance the discoverability of the NLB's resources. Welcome, Ling. And Mona is from the National Library of Finland. She's the Chief Information Specialist of Finto, the Finnish Ontology and Vocabulary Service at the National Library. And she previously worked mainly in the ANF team with automated subject indexing. So a lot of expertise there. It's going to be very interesting to find out from them for them to share some of their expertise. What we're going to do is Weiling's going to speak first and then Mona, and we'll take questions after both the presentations if that's okay. But feel free to put questions in the chat and we'll try and make sure I'll keep an eye on them and make sure we come back to them. But that's the plan. So I guess really welcome to Ling and ask her to share her slides and we can start the session.
Okay, just give me a minute. Okay.
Yeah, we can see.
The slides are okay? Okay, so hi everyone. I'm Ling. Basically, I'm a cataloger from the National Library Board, Singapore, which manages both the National Library and all the other public branches around the island. So this means that basically me and my fellow colleagues, we are in charge of cataloging all the collections for all the public library branches as well. So today I'm just going to here to share with you on the little tool that we call SGCAT that we are actually constantly tweaking and using to facilitate our cataloging. Why isn't the slide moving? So it's just what is SGCAT. I think I did share this over at ISLA last year or so. It's really not like a super high-tech thing. It's more an effort on our part as catalogers to see whether we can make use of this new technology that has similarly kind of lowered the barriers to coding, automation, etc. to kind of help improve our cataloging efficiencies. Really, our main aim is to see how we can take in all our various SOPs and guidelines from both the cataloging house and the acquisition selectors that has been developed over these years to see how we can use it to at least create like draft bibliographic records that takes in all that information that our catalogers can then use as a view base to review and improve on instead of them having to look at so many different buckets of info. So in a nutshell, why do we need or want this tool? The reason is actually quite simple. As mentioned before, we are really looking to see how we can further streamline the process of specifically original cataloging, i.e. when there isn't a record readily available out there that we can copy and work based off. And to make use of the time in between ordering the titles and to the arriving to create a draft that our catalogers can proceed to review and edit. So yeah, basically we are looking to improve up to the branches as soon as possible so that they don't remain with us at processing things. So maybe we can cut it down to 1 day or even lesser than that. If the receiving people, when they check the record, it looks right, and then it could just go straight out. Uh, so yeah, our key objective is to see how we can improve that process by automating certain routine aspects of the cataloging process for which there's enough information maybe to just do this record from, so that our catalogers, when the items actually come in, they can focus on just verifying, adding on the DDC and subjects, or even just helping to craft or review the summaries to the records. So by doing so, we hope to improve both speed and efficiency of the entire cataloging process. So I think some of you may have seen this quote around. What do we actually want AI to do for us? I think I very much agree that we want to do the things that we enjoy and let AI automation take care of the things that are slightly more mundane. So we do the things that require perhaps a little bit more intellectual input. Yeah. So what do we then at NLV think is the equivalent of the slightly more mundane stuff? Still meaningful, but maybe we could get some help with it. So cataloging, in our view, is basically divided into two main components, the descriptive and the subject cataloging. For us here, the laundry is maybe more descriptive aspects, especially when we have a lot of popular trade titles, because we do a lot of main part of our cataloging is for the public library branches. So these are the areas that we think AI can be of significant help. So it's mainly, it's a cataloger, the descriptive information for the title, author, publisher, physical description of the books, etc. These are all things that we feel we can harvest to a certain extent based on what we see from our acquisitions and order information. So for which we can also set out certain rules to take care of the normalized transcription guidelines, and also the certain presets that our selectors have indicated in the acquisition information that dictates which certain collections that these titles go into. So all these things are kind of either factual or fairly routine, and hence are the kind of the laundry that has the potential to be easily automated through with AI. So, and then with all those kind of taken care of, we have that brief base to work on. The cataloger can just look at, whether the subjects make sense, whether the DDC can be further tweaked, and then researching the author to make sure the right headings is used. Because in our context, especially for example Chinese names, it's very easy to just use the wrong, or rather the names are all very similar. So we want to try to make sure we disambiguate that name at that point in time, so that we get the right grouping of the authors. So these to us what we enjoy doing and debating more, particularly when it's honestly in a sense kind of more interesting to us to do that, to that research and deliberation. So really in actually uh, thinking about what we want to achieve with this tool, what we want to do with it, we are very much keeping in mind that, AI is like a very complementary tool, not a replacement for human expertise. The goal here, in a way, actually is to help us catalogers know what this thing can do for us and become more comfortable with integrating AI into their daily tasks in a way that makes sense to them, so that, rather than it being a source of fear, like maybe some of the bosses will say, oh, all these things can be done by AI. You guys are not needed anymore. We should be more proactive and, showcase to people how we use it as a tool to kind of enhance our productivity, especially when, actually there's kind of a less of a barrier of entry to craft the prompts, etc., than to say actually having to pick out an entire programming language. To give a little bit more background as to how this works in view of NLV systems, we do not use like a typical integrated library management system, all the different modules that is within one. We actually have three separate buckets, three separate systems. So for acquisition, this is done by electronic, what we call ESA, electronic selection and acquisition, which is a bespoke tool made specially for NLB to buy and process our books, largely due to certain Singapore procurement guidelines that we have to follow. This one actually recently we have launched the new version of it, so the cataloging team is actually working very hard to capture all the extra information that this new acquisition system is actually giving us, to see how else we can work in all this information into our SGCAT. So like say this thing this tool that we're using is actually fairly dynamic. So we try to build as much information out from the ordering and the selection process as much as possible. So in any case, once those titles are purchased through ESA and arrive, they get tagged with a barcode and recorded into our materials tracking system, which so that we know at any one point where a copy of a title is in our processing cataloging cycle. So basically, this is where the things get processed and then go outbound. So returning back to cataloging, as a first step, we generally get the ordered list from ESA in the form of an Excel sheet, which carries all the order information and selection remarks like broadcast, which is the internal terminology that we use. So it kind of suggests what are the potential DTC classes or what are the popular categories that our acquisition selectors are thinking it would land into. For example, ART for arts, of course, travel for travel guides, which has also certain predetermined DTC ranges, or some fiction genres, or some specific collection remarks for which we need certain local text to be programmed in for the collections to work. So it is, like I say, an Excel list instead of, say, on order bits, because ESA is not built and synced in that way to our ILS system, which we use mainly for the cataloging and circulation modules. We then run a batch process on this list so that we sort out all the duplicates, copycat. Those go to the copy cataloging team. And we focus for SGCAT entirely on the titles with no heat, i.e. the original cataloging list. So this would be what we, as said, use SGCAT to process. We do also acknowledge kind of actually based on the Excel list, even right now, we can actually just convert it directly into preliminary bid records using tools like MarkEdit. But we are really looking at how we can use new tools to further value add and hopefully make it an easier tool for our staff to tweak according to what our changing requirements are. So this is in a nutshell how it flows through. So basically it's like a custom GPT. We feed in all the information that we clean out from the order list. Then we also pumped in all our internal SOP guidelines that take certain cues from the order list as well to populate certain information in the brief mark record that is being done. So for example, one of the example for broadcast would be things like TH. If there's a TH under the broadcast column, likelihood this is a thriller as determined by our selector. So we'll put default, please include the thriller LCGFT inside the 655 tag. And we also use the order information for ISBNs, etc., to call things like Google Books API to see what other information, for example, summaries, etc., that we can harvest from it. So once all these things have been packaged into a record within SGCAT, we then put it through MarkEdit to do some validation and scripting just to clean it up, more. And then before we upload into, say, OCLC and into our own systems, we generally code it as encoding level 5 so that people know that this thing has not been actually verified by a human. And it's also for our staff to know so that they know that they have to eyeball these when the books actually come in. And this is currently the whole flow. And I think we're still making tweaks to it because we basically are getting a little bit more information from the new ordering system. And we are also contemplating, is it worth it to turn this GPT that currently sits on ChatGPT into actually an app so that people can just upload, click a button and then get the brief records out. But it is a debate because actually we did it originally so that our catalogers can have access to the backend to learn how things work, because we feel that it's important for people to know how things work. But then having it as an app could also help because so you just need to, on the day-to-day, you could just pass it through in to just generate the things. But then it's a little bit like it kind of instates the boundaries into using this tool again. So there's a little bit of debate on that. Sorry, I'm just a little rambling off. So this is a video roughly as to how the original SGCAT worked. I probably need to update this. So in a nutshell, we kind of upload the orders information and then ask it to create a record. And it will ask to talk to the different APIs, etc. It will generate the record here. It will also tell you the reason why it does certain action, how do they derive the cutter, which is the core number for our collections. We could also ask it for further verification on what are the information that's being used. That is usually what we use for some of the newer catalogers for them to interact with the tool more and hopefully use it as a way to understand how things work or actually capture some cataloging errors. So in a nutshell, once it's done, actually we download it out on the notepad and then put it in MarkEdit, run some validation. Um, and once it's done, we actually just upload into vocab. So this is kind of in a very quick way how it works, how the original iteration works. Now there's certain bit more tweaks going on. So to reiterate, we are primarily using these tools so that our catalogers can move from manually creating records to a more reviewer base, reviewing what is created and value adding. In terms of timing, we do find that, compared to creating a record from scratch, which we had previously done a time study for like a full year, for a simple non-fiction title, it can reduce the time taken by nearly 3 times. It's really, we're doing this to help our catalogers devote more attention to things like such as cataloging, making sure we're getting our author creator names right, even putting the time towards creating the name authority files, which traditionally we do not necessarily have much of time to do otherwise. So, and as one of the simple example is we traditionally didn't use to put subject headings as mandatory for our fiction titles, but with this we had more time to do so. And then in more recent months, there's more demand for summaries as well because those are kind of deemed necessary for certain recommendation engines to work. So we have been using all this time to actually work on those areas instead. So moving beyond that, oops, I think I moved too fast. So what's next? As we mentioned just now, we basically review almost every single record that comes out of this thing because there still works to be done. Sometimes, most of the time, the DGC and the target heading is still slightly off. So we emphasize that human participation is still required. And most importantly, when we change our guidelines, etc., the cataloger judgment has to be there to validate all those changes in the guidelines and then put them into the app to make sure that it continues to work. So what are some of the future work other than looking at all the extra information that's coming in through the order information right now? We're also trying to review to see how we can extend this to other formats like zeros and AV. This in a way also forces us to review all our knowledge base and documents to make sure that they're all aligned because we do have 4 large language groups here and they can have slightly different practices. So there is that debate going on, which is kind of fun actually, like a additional plus point out of doing this. And we are also trying to see if we can better extend the scope to non-English material. But one part of that is to look at what are the sources we could tap on to bring in information to enrich the record, to enrich the draft record. And another option that has surfaced recently is we are thinking to see whether we can expand this to our legal deposit or basically materials that has a Singapore international standard number. We're trying to review to see if it makes sense to use the information that is submitted by the publishers for ISBN issuance for the brief records because between them getting the ISBN issued and then depositing the LD material, there's kind of a lag time also. So, but then again, there's also our Singapore printed heritage. So we're debating should we go this route? Yeah. We have also been playing around with some other things. Like I mentioned repeatedly, we have had a lot of requests to actually harvest book summaries for some of our newer projects. If you're in Singapore and town, we had some new libraries open whereby we have what we call infinite shelves, whereby people can seamlessly browse the physical shelf and then go on to the electronic bookshelf to get books of a similar category or genre. So we did a one-time project to actually harvest the summaries and use AI to actually help flag out things that are maybe not that correct. Sometimes the summaries are just plain wrong or not related. But basically, it's used as a tool for us to very quickly go through all the summaries, flag out things that we need to maybe scrutinize a bit more before we pump them back into our bib records for use in the recommendation engine. Once again, this is something to just help us facilitate our work because we are looking at 30K or so, I think, summaries to be reviewed within a month. Yeah. So these are little things that we use also to assist in our cataloging and metadata enhancement work. Another thing that we do on a regular is to basically have a bot that has all our SOPs and guidelines that serves as a knowledge base. Particularly in this instance is for our Ling data management team. Because that team managing the tool is very small, so they sometimes get inundated with questions because the rest of the team are maybe not that familiar with how the tool works. So they set this thing out so that our folks can go in and self-service. If the bot is not answering up to standard or they still find it unclear the questions, then they could go and actually check in with our colleagues. So these are some other various ways we've been using the AI tools in our department. I think that's it for now. I'm mindful of the time.
Thank you, Ling. Do you want to stop sharing your slides? We had a brilliant, thank you. We had a lot of questions there in the chat. We'll try and come back to those later. A few have been answered by your colleagues, I think, but it'd be great to come back and get a bunch of ask you a bunch of questions afterwards. But I think we decided to ask Mona to present her work now. So over to Mona.
Thank you, Andrew. And let me share my slides here for a minute. Okay, so I'm Mona Lehtinen again, and I'm here to talk about ANNIF, our automated subject indexing tool. And I'm part of the ANNIF team, which also includes Osmo Suominen and Juha Inkinen, and also Unni Kohnen from the National Library of Finland. And we are a small team here that works on automated subject indexing. And we have been developing ANNIF here since 2017, basically. And ANNIF is a general purpose open source tool for automated subject indexing and classification. ANNIF itself is multilingual and can support many kinds of indexing vocabularies as well. We offer ANNIF freely on GitHub, and we also provide a website with a test form and, of course, APIs for ANNIF use. And ANNIF, while it's being coded and maintained here at the National Library of Finland, we are fortunate enough to have a global development and user community behind us. And we have this very active forum on Google Groups called ANNIF Users, where our different users and other interested people can discuss ANNIF. And in 2020, we launched our Finto AI service, which is like our production instance of ANNIF. So basically, we have trained these machine learning models to do the subject indexing task, and we offer it through our Finto AI service. And it's intended to support catalogers mainly in Finland, and it's a sister project to our Finto vocabulary service because we offer vocabularies that are in turn maintained by the Finto service itself. And right now we support the general Finnish ontology and the Finnish library classification system, and also Kauno, which is the ontology for fiction. So those are the vocabularies and ontologies we offer through our Finto AI service at the moment. So these are the two names I will be using. Sometimes they are interchangeable a bit, at least in Finland. But ANNIF is the software and Finto AI is our service. So hence the differentiation and clarification here in the beginning. So ONIF, like I mentioned, the work started in 2017 when these large language models weren't there. So ONIF is based on more traditional technology, and it offers various open source algorithms we can use to do our subject indexing task there. So we can use lexical approaches, which are these algorithms that will try and match terms in a document to terms in a vocabulary. Or we can use more associative approaches, more associative algorithms, which will then learn statistical associations between words in text and words in a vocabulary. The difference here is that these lexical approaches need less training data, and these associative approaches need lots more of training data. And this training data is one of the trickiest parts in ONIF use. So the machine learning algorithms have to learn the task, and in order to do it, they will need training data. So, and of course, in ONIF, one of the specialty there is that we offer all these algorithms which can do the subject indexing. But we also support using these algorithms together in ensembles. So where one single algorithm or one single machine learning approach might have its weaknesses, combining it with others usually yields better results. So together the algorithms are of course stronger, and mistakes tend to be more hidden. That's what the solo artist and the band here are trying to represent. So if a solo artist makes a small mistake, it's clearly audible. But if somebody in a band makes a small mistake, maybe it's only audible to the conductor of the orchestra or something, and so less easy, less obvious. All right. So, like I said, we work closely with other people as well in the National Library of Finland. So, like I mentioned, the Finto Ontologies and Vocabulary Service there. The National Library also has repository services which use ONIF. I will show it in a minute actually, how it's used there. And then we have these legal deposits where ONIF can be used. So if somebody submits, for example, like an electronic legal deposit to the library, they might be able to get, or they are able to get keyword suggestions from ONIF during the process of submitting their legal deposits electronically. And of course, at the National Library, we also have this Finland Discovery Service, which is one of our end users, of course, for the metadata that we provide. And here is some F1 at 5 scores. So this is like ONIF performance. And this also gives a brief overview of on which kind of material ONIF can be used. So you see, for example, there are theses and electronic deposits there, book description texts, and 3 different languages mainly, so Finnish, Swedish, and English there. And we do these tests regularly to keep up with ONIF performance when we update the ONIF machine learning models in the background of our Pinto AI service there. So we compare ONIF performance with human performance, and of course the F1 at 5 score of a 1 would be a perfect match. But of course we will never be able to reach that. I don't think even 2 expert indexers would be able to reach a complete consensus all the time. So we are pretty happy with the results there. And of course here you can see that these are mainly like non-fiction, academic, and news texts, mainly that we have trained ONIF on, and that's reflecting in the performance. So these are the use cases our Pinto AI service, for example, works the best on. We also work with external partners, for example, in Germany, the Leibniz Information Center of Economics, and then, of course, the German National Library as well, and other national libraries around the world, for example, in Estonia and Latvia and Norway. And we also work closely with our Finnish IT Center of Science, CSC, which also hosts the Lumi supercomputer. So we have a big network going on with Annif and Finto AI development. And here are some of the logos and users of partners and users of Annif and Finto AI. So you can see the national libraries there, and then, for example, the Yle is the Finnish public broadcasting company corresponding to, for example, CNN or BBC. And they also have this Annif instance in use when they publish their news articles. So they will get keywords for the news items from Annif as well. And also Finnish museums have a use case for Annif. So this is the collector system where people can describe museum objects, for example, pictures, images, and other artifacts. And in here, you can see that somebody has typed a description of the object, of the picture of the train there, and then the text actually goes through Annif, and Annif suggests some keywords there. And of course, in the time of AI, you could probably try to get AI to write the description for you, and then use Annif on that. So that's an involving use case, I would say, but an interesting one nonetheless. And of course, I mentioned the internal use many times. So we have these institutional repositories that we maintain here at the library, and I will try and show you a silent video for how Annif works there. So this video has no sound, but this is the feed-in form for the repository. So you can see somebody uploading their thesis there to the repository. But this is a higher education institute, so University of Vaasa there. And they fill in the author information, title of the work, and date of issue. And here you see the keyword suggestions given by Annif. And you can choose the ones that are correct, and then if need be, you can also add some more there if something seems to be missing. And then you can move on and then just check the information, check the licensing information there. And here's the test file now uploaded to the repository, and here's the metadata of it. So you see all the Dublin core fields there, and then you see these dc.subject.yso fields. These are the chosen keywords, and then these Annif suggestion links there are the ones that Annif did propose, but they weren't selected. So this is like one way of keeping track of Annif performance as well. We like to work together with our interest groups and users to test our performance there as well. So, and the use case is similar for the electronic deposits there as well. So it also has a feeding form. So like I said, these are the steps if you would like to get Annif running on yourself. So you need a vocabulary and lots of data, and then you can train and evaluate your models. So that's how Annif works. And this is like a representation of our setup there. So, and then of course the evaluation is important. So like I showed, the F1 scores, the numeric scores, they are one way of keeping track of the performance. But evaluating index quality directly in use cases is also important to us. And we have been working quite closely with some of our users before we even launched the Finto AI service. So that's one of our golden rules, that always evaluate this in the actual working context as well. And I will actually, if I have time, I probably do, I will show you how the Finto AI actually works here. I have it here. This is the Finto AI service. And this is the upload file. I can now choose a file, for example, this dissertation here, and it will download the contents of the dissertation of the PDF. It will detect the language. This is English now, which is correct. Then we can choose the vocabulary, and we can choose to have the terms translated right away. And we can get the subject headings there. So here you can copy the term, or you can copy the URL of the term. For example, you can go to Finto and see this term there, and here's this is the same one, but it's translated into Finnish. So yeah. So this is how Finto AI works, and of course you can use the API to integrate the whole thing to your own systems, like I showed you in the video example. So you don't have to use this form if you don't want to. And here we also have this user guide. So this will describe the using of Finto AI to the user, and of course it will emphasize the checking of the results once Finto AI has just given its suggestions. Then there's this small checklist on how to verify these correctness. And then, of course, we are aware of AI and LLMs, and we have been, comparing ONIF with AI, or more like LLM-based AI models. And of course, we entered this competition called LLMs for Subjects last year. It was like 2 rounds of it, and actually we won with ONIF. So even if ONIF is like older technology, it's still quite valid. And how we employed the LLMs in this task is that we actually used the LLMs to generate more training data for ONIF in this case. And we can also use the LLMs to verify the results that ONIF has given. So we can use the LLM to rank the ONIF results that it gives. So that's one way to try and use LLMs with ONIF. We don't have like a LLM backends in ONIF yet, but we will never say never. We'll see what the future holds for ONIF in this case. But for now, we are quite happy with ONIF performance as it is. And here are some results there. And then, of course, if you want to learn more about ONIF, there's the ONIF tutorial online, which you can go and study on your own. And we also have, from time to time, these tutorial sessions, which we, for example, give in connection with, for example, conferences. And there's the wiki and Google Groups you can also use to familiarize yourself with ONIF. And in the future, we are working on also extracting bibliographic metadata, not just keywords. So all kinds of metadata fields are there to be picked up from the PDFs and need some automation there. And this is what we are working on now. So, and this is actually a better task for the LLMs. So the more traditional technologies we have used are not so good in this task, but the LLMs are actually performing quite well with the bibliographic metadata extraction. So here's how we are employing AI, or the LLMs there in the future. But yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say for now. And if you have some questions, of course, we would be happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mona. That's great. We have quite a few questions in the chat, but maybe I could ask a couple of initial questions that are relevant to both speakers, perhaps. So I wondered whether there's any patterns in the kind of errors that these tools make? Is there any particular weak areas or maybe even biases, would you say, that you sort of notice it making again and again that you're trying, that are hard to fix?
Of course, if I may start, of course, these machine learning systems and AI systems are only as good as the data they're trained on. So you have to be really careful about the quality of training data that you use. And with ANIF particularly, we have noticed that for fiction text, for example, like books or poems, for example, that's not a perfect use case for our machine learning algorithms there. So with nonfiction, it works better, I would say. So
I think on my end, during the initial stages, we had a lot of issues getting the fixed views right, leader lines. Anything that we don't say very specifically tends to go haywire. But as we further tweak the tools, like we are very strict these days to say, okay, if you see this value in the order information, it's a lot of if then else kind of a rule. So we have to make sure that we are very exact in the knowledge base that we give it, that in the instructions that we feed it, which is actually kind of fun because in the end, we all the catalogers sit down and realize there were some actually existing conflicts that we had to iron out before we went back in to fix the prompt. Yeah.
And another question that I know a lot of professionals are concerned about is like, well, what skills, or me as an educator, new librarian, what skills do you think people really need to maybe not to develop a system, to work with them?
well, in our case, of course, the technical skills have been crucial in developing ANIF. So we need these people who can write software. And of course, we also need people who are familiar with the cataloging world and the cataloging rules so that we can make sure that the results are okay and the use cases are okay and the users will be happy. And then, and then also we need communication. So communication, like expertise as well, so that we can get the word out that here there's ONIF here and you can use it. And then, of course, you need also educational skills because you need to be able to teach ONIF use. So various skills would be necessary in this kind of project, I would say, but depends.
I think for my side, it's a lot of, how do you say, just be curious. Don't just think that everything will just happen in a black box and, everything happens like magic. Go and poke around with the tool. Have faith actually in your expertise knowledge. Because a lot of my catalogers, especially maybe, sorry if I sound ageist here, some of them maybe slightly older, not that great with tech. They'll be like, this is not for me. I can never contribute positively to it. But actually they can because they came in and helped clarify a lot of our internal cataloging SOPs and guidelines. And then they realized they could actually come in and help craft the prompts behind how we actually craft out the prompts and make it clearer, and it actually works. So I think that is, of course, there is a baseline technical capability if you want to take this thing even further. But it's more about not fearing this and building faith in your own kind of a capability. Yeah, that's what I find is important over here at my end. Yeah.
Maybe related to that question, maybe it's an unfair question, but will there be fewer jobs in the future because of these technologies, or will they just change? I mean, that's what I think a lot of people are concerned about.
Well, in our case, we have also always tried to emphasize that we are not coming for anybody's job with ANIF. So we emphasize the need to check the ANIF results, of course, by humans. Of course, we are aware that there are use cases in which there cannot be too much human intervention if we want to get at least some kind of a metadata for those records or for those materials there. But I think this is mostly for now at least, it's the change in the job. Sorry, so this is meant to be, and I would hope to see that this AI is a tool and an aid and something to use and rely on, but not that much. So I would hate to see AI replace information specialists' jobs.
I think on my end, it may change a little, but the emphasis is still to actually build a basis. We still put new catalogers through the grind because we believe, I mean, I said this a couple of times already, you need to know how things work. So you need to be able to understand the principles of it and not just blindly trust that whatever you see on the screen is what it is. So we are going to still put a lot of our catalogers through that work. That fundamental cataloging work still has to go on. We are still making them, do the original cat without the aid of the GPT. So to ensure that level of understanding is there, because if not, maybe it'll come to a day whereby we don't understand why we put certain instructions in, and that is scary to me. Yeah. So that basis is still there. Yeah, but it may change a little because with this, it does give us a little bit more time to do other things. For example, we do have a bit more time to go and tackle our name authority records, which has been in a mess because we have not had a dedicated team looking at it. So it does freeze out sometimes to do some other specialized knowledge in other areas. Yeah.
Yeah, Mark comments, cataloging units are understaffed. AI just helps to catch up. I think that seems like a general viewpoint. So maybe I'll just read out a few of the questions. I mean, many of them that have come in the chat. Many have already been answered, but I think it's good to just go through them again, perhaps. Particularly regarding SGCAT. Patricia was asking how the AI tools have coped with non-English language materials. And I guess that, yeah.
For us, we are still mainly working with our English materials. Non-English, we haven't done that much when it comes to crafting the bibliographic records, but we have used it in some metadata enhancement projects, particularly with regards to summaries and actually filtering out certain categories for some custom curation tools. It works, I would say, kind of fine, especially in summaries when you are very certain about some of the attributes they're looking for, to what are the things you're looking to flag out. Yeah, anything beyond that, if it relates back to actual creating records from scratch, I can't say to that. Yeah.
And Mona, maybe there's a related question about how well would ANF deal with, say, non different types of script or different languages? Do you? So obviously you are using with English, Swedish, and Finnish, but
yeah, ANF itself, of course, is like it's language independent. So if there are like certain natural language processing tools, Python libraries and stuff like that for your language, then ANF should work, and you only need the training data actually. Of course, there are some languages which wouldn't necessarily have all of these tools ready, so that would make it more difficult. And we are, for example, aware of ANF being used in Poland and in Sweden and stuff like that. So it's possible, and the quality of the indexing depends on I would say, the amount of training material. So if you have enough training material, then you should be able to get as good result as we do here.
and then a lot of the questions on SGCAT were about, can you share the actual tool, or can you share the prompts? And we've got answers in the chat, but I was thinking, for both of you, what do you see as the drivers and barriers to sharing these tools? I mean, obviously, with ANF, you've gone a long way to making it open source, getting lots of partners. What are the benefits there?
Well, the benefits of open source, of course, are like the fact that we can get user feedback easily. and we can be in touch with our actual users. Maybe they will actually write some code for us if they notice something that they can actually fix or improve. And if they find a bug, they will report that. Of course, that's always like crucial for any project, the user engagement there and user contribution. And we appreciate everybody who has done so. And of course, there are we are in a fortunate position because we are at the National Library of Finland. And we can we have this time and resources allocated for this ANIF development. So we are safe in that regard. So we are not like some open source projects, of course, that have hobbies, and they might be difficult to maintain or keep up. But that's one of the challenges of open source projects that we've been able to avoid here, thankfully.
I think for my sharing wasn't really a priority when we started off on this, because it was really more like we were trying to figure out what we can do with it, and because it's so tied into our internal processes, like certain of the order and selection information is really how we organize our collection, which is why we kind of hesitate a little because we're not too sure how applicable it is to other institutions, but we could definitely explore because we are also further finessing the tool. Like I say, we were toying around with the idea of doing an app or something that you can have more configurable components while still calling on the AI to do certain things. So we will explore further if we do go that direction or we see some other ways we could go around it, we will share, definitely. Yeah. But like I say, it was really it's just a super, thing that we were playing around. Yeah. Really wasn't expecting much. Yeah.
And then Luigi's asking a very interesting question. So he's basically saying, well, for unique material, fine, maybe we need AI, but shouldn't publishers be providing much better descriptive metadata for the materials already, rather than us having to do loads of work? Do you have your thoughts on that one?
Yes, of course, professional publishers would be nice if they could provide high quality metadata from the get-go. Of course, that will benefit everybody. But for example, in ANIF use cases where the actual user is a student who is uploading their thesis, for example, to a repo, and they can't always be expected to know cataloging rules or cataloging vocabularies and stuff like that. So in these cases, tools like this are especially, I would say, useful. Maybe less so for a professional user, but yeah.
I think for my end, we do some enhancements actually for the ebook providers that we get, and we are generally not too happy. But this is more ebook provider that is more of the popular titles. There can be quite a few errors here and there that doesn't integrate well into our systems because we do have a lot of our own internal applications that need specific views to be available. So for us, no matter what, we will do the enhancements according to what our internal needs are. And actually, AI and automation tools, actually, it's more automation, actually works very well in that regard. Yeah. While still building on our cataloging expertise, it's because we had enough exposure to how the vendor supplied metadata looks like, and we know what are the areas that we need to plug. Yeah. So we do have some things that we have already done, and we may be presenting at if it's accepted at the upcoming ISLA. So yeah, we'll share more about those tools. Yeah.
A couple of last questions. One is from Sally Way saying, how can these tools be integrated into existing library systems? Thoughts?
Yeah, well, ANIF has these REST style APIs. So you can call ANIF via the API, and then if your own system has the possibility of working with these APIs, then the ANIF integration should be quite technically straightforward there.
And there's another question about specific to Amleth, I think it's
Okay.
can this be used for other subject headings such as fast?
Of course, yeah. You would only have to download ONIF and then have this training material that uses, for example, fast. And then you would have to just go on and train ONIF and see what results you would get. So yes, it's possible, of course.
And maybe one last closing question from me. I'll make it a difficult one. What are the things you think are going to happen next, and what are the things that are never going to happen with this sort of technology development? What do you think is like the most maybe more interesting, the most exciting new thing that you could do? That's a problem you can solve. But on the other hand, what is the bit that cannot be solved?
Well, of course, the AI world offers interesting possibilities in the future. For example, I was talking about for example, getting automated texts for like the description texts for images, for example, and then using ONIF on that. So that's one interesting development. And of course, all of these LLM-based indexing tools are, of course, very interesting and probably develop quite fast in the future, I would say. But one thing I would not see happening is AI replacing human intellectual work completely. So subject indexing, it's an art form, it's a science, so it cannot be completely, I think, completely left to AI. Of course, there are applications and use cases, but the core human aspect of it, I would at least hope and foresee that it wouldn't completely go away.
Maybe a bit tunnel vision of me, but as we did in our B per se, we've been using AI to do a lot of the bulk of the metadata enhancement work because a lot of our retrospective legacy data is simply too much for the team to go on manually one by one. So I do see potential definitely going on in that regard. But the thing that will not go away is actually our catalogers expertise. Because I say time again, in a lot of these projects, when it comes to providing the attributes to look for and actually validating the results of the different trials, the iterations of the apps, internal apps that we've been using, it always goes back to the cataloger validating whether the output is right or wrong. So, for example, we are working on something potentially for archival indexing as well because National Library Board is actually together with our National Archives. So the catalogers have found like a new space for them to deploy kind of their cataloging knowledge too, because our archivists are less so inclined on subject indexing, which is something that we're exploring to bring the two collections better together. So yeah, I think your human expertise will not go away. Tech will complement it. Yeah.
Well, it's nice to finish on a positive note. We still have a job in the future. That's a relief to me anyway. Okay, that was very interesting. Thank you so much to Ling and Mona. Really appreciate it. Thanks to you as an audience for um, asking your questions and coming along today. There is a recording being made, and I would also say there's quite a few other webinars coming up in the future, so please look out for those. So, but thank you so much for everything, and particularly to our speakers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Or maybe let people leave on their own accord rather than click end, which does throw people out rather rudely. So,
Yeah.
we just wait while people disappear.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for that. It's like excellent.
Well, thank you for your facilitation.
Thanks. Phew, now I can breathe.
Yeah, it is a bit nerve-wracking.
Yeah, always is.
I'm very bad at this.
No, not. But it's a bit scary when you think it's like 100 people. There's still 50 online, so. Okay, so maybe I will close
Yeah.
the session. But thank you so much again. It was
Yes.
really good. I'm sure a lot of people, well, they obviously wanted to contact you and get more details. So that's very
Yeah.
promising. So,
All right. But thank you,
yeah,
and
yeah, thank you. Thank you both. Cheers.
cheers. Bye.